the unexciting part of the program. Welcome all of you intellectual trick-or-treaters. It's good to see you here. Welcome to the House of Usher, because that's what this is going to be for the next little while. Christian just asked me to give a little bit of introduction, and this will be very short, about Poe and about the House of Usher. And I'm going to give you a little bit of information too about some of the music based on Usher. A memorable epoch in literary history in September 1839 was when Burton's Gentleman's Magazine published Edgar Allan Poe's The Fall of the House of Usher. This was a revolution in short story writing, but nobody knew it at the time. It took a while for this to become clear. At the time, Poe was 30 years old and unable to make a living in his chosen calling, which is as a poet. It's just as hard then as it is now to make a living being a poet. As a result, he turned to magazine writing and short stories, but he turned these short stories into poetry. Check out the enchantingly mysterious first sentence of Usher, particularly the use of sound effects, the use of the D's, the OU's, the S's. During the whole of a dull, dark, and soundless day, in the autumn of the year, when the clouds hung oppressively low in the heavens, I had been passing alone on horseback through a singularly dreary tract of country, and at length found myself, as the shades of evening drew on, within view of the melancholy House of Usher. Note the absolute stillness of the sentence, as if it were as haunted as the House of Usher itself. The House of Usher is a perfect example of one of Poe's contributions to short fiction, transforming the primitive, exploitative Gothic into a sophisticated psychological fiction. G.R. Thompson, a Poe scholar, summarized how this works a little bit in Usher. Quote, "It is misleading to conceive of the meaning of the tale as devolving solely upon any single and fixed object, such as the supernatural character of the house, or the Madsen Usher, as opposed to a Gothic homily on the neurasthenia of the ultimate in narcissistic artist heroes, or as opposed to the incestuous guilt and hereditary curse of the family. It is a concatenation of all these, and not an either-or question." So don't try to interpret it. The Usher Formula, as Carl Cederholm and I define in our book, consists of an outsider with psychological issues coming to a house on the brink of collapse, literally or figuratively, that is full of secrets, traumas, and fears. The character of the house and the outsider begin to blur into one another as the outsider deteriorates psychologically. This leads to an apocalyptic ending, often adjunct or central to this structure in the Gothic tradition, is a repressed or immured female. This is all complicated by the fact that in the House of Usher it is difficult to sort out what is real and what is only imagined, and that the tale itself is as alive as the house with its endless doublings. It seems to be fiction spawned directly from the unconscious mind, and that's something I want you to think about here. Creating a haunted dream world wherein instability is the norm. This formula, this Usher formula with variations, can be seen in such well-known modern Gothics as Gilman's The Yellow Wallpaper. Gilman was a big fan of Poe's. Lovecraft's The Shadow over Innsmouth, Henry James's The Turn of the Screw, Jackson's The Haunting of Hill House, and Stephen King's The Shining. Tonight's presentation by Christian Asplund and friends joins a great tradition of musical ushers, including Debussy's opera, written between 1908 and 1917. He was a slow composer. He never did finish it. And Philip Glass's 1987 opera, recently presented in Nashville. Like Asplund, who has been influenced by the word, including his wife Laura's wonderful poetry, Debussy was one who looked to the written word for inspiration. Paul Dukas notes that the strongest influence which Debussy underwent is that of literary men, not of musicians. Because of tonight's performance, I looked up some of Debussy's interest in Poe and found the correct state of mind which one should be in to hear music based on his writing. That is, it is meant to cause you to feel rather than to think, to wonder rather than to muse. Debussy's approach is a model for all who wish to get Poe. In Poe's Usher, Debussy felt he had found another source suited to exploring the unconscious and the macabre. He wrote to a friend, "These days I've been working hard on the fall of the House of Usher. There are moments when I lose the feeling of things around me. And if the sister of Roderick Usher were to come into my house, I shouldn't be very surprised." According to Robert Orledge, Debussy began increasingly to identify with Roderick Usher. This is not a good idea, except for purposes of art, whose mental breakdown Poe had identified with the crumbling house itself. And finally, in another letter, and here's the correct Poe state of mind, I hope you'll strive for it tonight. Debussy wrote, "I have recently been living in the House of Usher, which is not exactly the place where one can look after one's nerves. Just the opposite. One develops the curious habit of listening to the stones as if they were in conversation with each other, and of expecting houses to crumble to pieces as if this were not only natural but inevitable. Moreover, I should confess that I like these people more than many others. I have no confidence in the normal, well-balanced type of people. So sit back, tune into your unconscious mind, and let the music collapse your analytical, literal minded consciousness. Put the classroom behind you. You're in the House of Usher now. Don't be afraid, though, because as Poe writes in his poem, The Lake, yet that terror is not a fright, but a tremulous delight." Thank you.